The TeraFlex Alpine RT3 suspension system for the Ford Bronco includes everything you need to fit 37-inch tires on your Bronco. Included in the kit are new front upper control arms and rear upper and lower control arms, all with TeraFlex's IR bushings, a new rear adjustable heavy-duty track bar, and Falcon 3.3 coilover shocks. This kit transforms even a base model into an off-roading powerhouse. This video will show the entire installation process so you can install everything yourself. Begin the installation process by lifting the vehicle off the ground and removing the wheels. Disconnect the tie rod end from the knuckle. You will likely need to use a hammer or an air hammer to loosen the stud. Disconnect the sway bar link from the knuckle on both the driver's side and the passenger side. Remove the hub nut. Using a non-scarring hammer, loosen the shaft in the hub. Loosen the nut on the joint connecting the upper control arm to the knuckle, keeping it on a few threads. Hit the knuckle with a hammer or an air hammer until the stud on the ball joint comes loose. Remove the nut and slowly allow the knuckle to drop. Wash the shaft from the hub, and if it doesn't move freely, give it a few taps with a mallet. You don't want the knuckle to pull on the shaft at all. Hang the knuckle out of the way using a bungee cord. Remove the hardware on the underside of the factory shock. You can either push the studs out from the factory shock with an air hammer or push the knuckle down on the lower control arm with a pry bar until the studs are free of the arm. Be careful not to separate the joint on the CV shaft or damage the boot in any way, especially if you choose the latter option of pushing down on the lower arm. Once the studs are out on the lower control arm, remove the hardware on the top of the factory shock, and it should come right out of the vehicle. Before installing the new Falcon coilover shock assembly, you need to replace the upper control arm. To do this, you need to remove at least half of the clips holding the inner fender liner in place. You can remove the entire inner fender liner if that's easier for you. Place a steering wheel lock onto the steering wheel. Disconnect the steering. Having the steering wheel lock in place will prevent you from damaging the clock spring, and it will keep the steering wheel rotation angle from changing. Basically, don't disconnect the steering without having a steering wheel lock in place. Loosen and remove the hardware holding the upper control arm in place. You cannot do this on the driver's side without disconnecting the steering. On the passenger side, you'll just be able to remove the bolt. Remove the factory arm. Install the new TeraFlex control arm reusing the factory hardware. These are side-specific, so make sure you have the correct arm. After the arm is on the driver's side, reconnect the steering. Once the steering is reconnected, you can remove the steering wheel lock. We recommend not replacing the inner fender liner clips until you're done with the entire installation. Install the Falcon upper body cap bracket so that the Falcon logo is facing out. It sits under the factory shock tower with the hardware installed from above. Install the Falcon coilover assembly. The piggyback reservoir should point towards the inside of the vehicle. The wider end of the bar pin should point towards the CV shaft to provide clearance for the joint. On the lower end, install the stud plate from the underside of the arm into the bar pin. final tighten the shock and control arm hardware. The bushings in the arms are TeraFlex's IR or independent rotation bushings. These bushings have an inner sleeve that prevents the bushing from ever binding. Because of this, the hardware can be tightened while the suspension is not under load. Connect the upper control arm to the knuckle. Reconnect the tie rod end to the knuckle. Replace the hub nut. Reconnect the sway bar link to the knuckle only after both the driver and passenger sides have been installed. We suggest first installing the 2 brake line relocation brackets on the rear axle before installing any other components on the rear. This will ensure that you will not overstretch the brake lines when you are installing the Falcon coilover assemblies. The first bracket installs just to the right of the differential housing. Remove all the clips on the lines around the bracket and then remove the hardware from the bracket. Install the new bracket onto the axle and then connect the brake lines to it. Reattach the clips to the new bracket. The second relocation bracket goes just to the left of the passenger side brake caliper. Disconnect the brake line from the axle and place the relocation bracket onto the axle, then attach the brake line to it. To remove the rear factory shock, support the rear axle and remove the hardware on the rear end. Adjust the height of the support to keep the bolt from binding. To access the upper end, you need to partially remove the inner fender liner. For this video, we removed the entire thing. Remove the hardware on the top of the factory shock and then it can be taken off the vehicle. Install the upper mounting bracket from below with the Falcon logo facing the rear. Like in the front, the hardware installs from the top. Install the Falcon coilover assembly with the reservoir facing out. Reuse the factory hardware to install the lower eyelet. A spacer goes on either side of the eyelet. The threaded holes on the lower end should face the front. Install the roost guards onto the lower end of the shock. Installing the control arms requires that you drop the gas tank from the vehicle to allow access to the frame ends of the passenger side control arms. This video shows the process on a two-door Bronco, even though it is less common. The differences between two-door and four-door vehicles will be noted. It's a good idea to have the gas tank close to empty before you try to remove it. Disconnect the fill tube and the hose on the back of the tank. Support the gas tank and loosen all the bolts that connect it to the frame. In this video, we support the gas tank with the transmission jack, but any support will work as long as the gas tank remains level. To ensure the gas tank does not fall off the support, we added a strap to tie it down. On the two-door, a cross member on the frame prevents us from running the strap across the middle of the gas tank, so we had to remove the support bolts and lower the tank just a bit, but more than you would need to on the four-door. Lower the tank enough until you can reach in between the tank and the body and disconnect the plug towards the center. If you need to remove the rear drive line, then do so. It will need to be disconnected later anyway. Reach further in between the gas tank and disconnect the two hoses on the far side of the gas tank. Disconnect the two hoses in front. Be aware that these hoses can spit out a little gasoline when you unhook them, so be careful. You can now drop the gas tank away from the vehicle. Remove the skid plate covering the frame end of the rear lower control arm. The screws holding this in place are Torx Plus, which is different from regular Torx. Using regular Torx may strip out the screws. Remove the bolt cover on the axle end of the passenger side rear upper control arm. This cover will not be reinstalled because the bolt, when reinstalled, will go in the opposite direction, eliminating the need for it. Loosen the bolts on the control arms. To access the frame side of the rear upper driver's side arm, you will need to disconnect the exhaust from the frame in these two locations. Just lubricate them a little bit and they should be good. Once all the arms are loose, remove one arm at a time and replace it with the corresponding TeraFlex arm reusing the factory hardware. The provided upper arms look identical, but the diagram given here shows how they should be installed. As you can see in the diagram, the adjustable end goes towards the axle on the driver's side, but goes towards the frame on the passenger side. The sleeves for the bushings on the frame end are just a bit wider than the sleeves for the bushings on the axle end. Set the length of the arms to match the factory arms. These can be adjusted later. The factory length is just a good starting point. On the axle end of the upper passenger arm, you need to install a bolt so it is pointing in the other direction, with the threaded end towards the outside of the vehicle. Once the arms are installed in the correct locations, you can tighten all the hardware. The TeraFlex rear control arms use IR or independent rotation bushings. These bushings make use of an inner sleeve that prevents the bushing from ever binding. Because of this, you can tighten the hardware for these bushings while the suspension is not under load. Reinstall the skid plate that goes over the frame side of the rear lower control arm. Lubricate the exhaust mounts and reconnect the exhaust. Reinstall the gas tank in reverse order of how it was removed. Remember to reattach all the hoses, clips, and clamps that were removed or loosened. Install the rear heavy-duty track bar and track bar relocation bracket at the same time. The relocation bracket is included in the rear Falcon shock box. Remove the factory rear track bar. Set the relocation bracket into place. On the left, use a short M14 hardware with a thick washer. Keep it loose for now. Insert the provided sleeve into the space on the lower hole. Attach it using the provided M16 hardware. Tighten down the hardware that has been installed. Set the length of the heavy-duty track bar to match the factory track bar. This can be adjusted during the alignment, but the factory length is a very good starting point. Install the HD track bar with the adjustable end going to the axle and install the frame end hardware. Since the axle shifted over when the track bar was removed, we used a ratchet strap to align the hole in the bracket with the track bar and reuse the factory hardware to attach it. If the suspension were under load, then the strap would not be necessary, because the relocation bracket is installed. Do not final tighten the hardware until the wheels are back on and the suspension is at right height. The two bolts that clamp the adjuster need to be tightened after all the adjustments have been made. Using a torque wrench, tighten the first bolt to 60 foot-pounds, tighten the second bolt, and then return to the first bolt. It will have loosened a bit. Go back and forth several times until both bolts are at 60 foot-pounds without the other changing. All of the parts should now be installed onto your vehicle, but there are a few modifications that still need to be made. The gas tank skid plate can make minor contact with the driveline when the rear flexes. To prevent this, you need to trim the skid plate just a small amount. Remove the drive line if you have not already done so. Mark the area you need to cut. Go down the weld about 1.5 inches and go straight across so you're cutting out a triangle. Place a metal plate in between the gas tank and the skid plate before cutting. Never cut the skid plate without having a metal plate in the way to protect the gas tank. Use a cutoff wheel to remove this section of the skid plate. Clean up the sharp edges with a grinder. Prime and then paint the cut section. Use a good etching primer and black enamel semi-gloss paint. In order to run 37-inch tires, some of the wire harnesses found behind the fender liners need to be relocated. Also, the crash bar needs to be trimmed just a little bit. 37s can rub on these components when the wheels turn or the shocks become fully compressed. It is especially important to do before driving off-road. Remove the front inner fender liners and take off the plastic bracket on both sides of the vehicle. On the driver's side, disconnect the wire harness from the body and the frame. Cut the zip tie holding the wire harness to the plastic bracket. This will allow you to detach the 2 plugs from the plastic bracket. Then there is one more clip holding the wire harness to the body along the top. Unplug the plug that naturally sits on the outside and run it so it goes on the inside. Tie the plugs to the body on the inside of the engine bay just behind where the plastic bracket that you removed them from sits. Doing this will allow you to reroute the harness so the larger 37-inch tire won't rub against it. Use the provided hose clamp to hold the wire harness with the brake line anchor bracket mounting stud. Zip tie everything so it's held tight to the frame and other lines. If the breather hose is in the way, reposition it on the outside of the wire harness. On the passenger side, do a very similar thing. First, disconnect the wire harness from the wiper fluid reservoir. You can cut these clips because they don't like to come out easily and you don't want to damage the reservoir. Unplug the wire harness and run it over the top of the larger harness. Reconnect it and secure it using zip ties and the provided clamp on the brake line anchor bracket mounting stud. Reinstall the inner fender liners. 2 additional holes need to be made to secure the fender liners. The first hole is about 2 inches above the right factory hole. You are going to put the provided clip and washer into the oval hole where the wire harness used to go. To make a hole in the liner, heat up a screwdriver with a torch and basically melt the hole in the liner. A soldering iron can also work to do this. Slide the washer up behind the oval hole and attach it with the clip. The second new hole location is near the bottom of the fender liner. Use the same method to melt the hole and reuse one of the leftover factory clips to attach it. The rear crash bar needs to be trimmed just a little bit so it does not rub on the 37s. Do not trim more than is necessary. The bracket only needs to be trimmed just a little bit off the front corner. Follow the tracing we do here. Use a body saw to cut it off and then smooth over the sharp edges. Paint any exposed metal. If you have factory rock rails, then those will need to be trimmed so that the front tires do not rub on them. Detailed instruction is given in the written instructions with the kit. It's a pretty straightforward modification. Spacers are also provided to adjust the plastic bumper's position. The 2 factory steel bumper options do not need these spacers installed. Upon completion of the installation, remember to get an alignment from a shop that is familiar with off-road vehicles. If you have any questions about the installation process, then please reach out to TeraFlex's customer service team. Thanks for watching.